Welcome to the Doherty Water for Food podcast. Since 2010, the Doherty Water for Food Global Institute at the University of Nebraska has worked toward one goal, a food and water secure world. One in which global food security is ensured without compromising the use of water to meet other essential human and environmental needs. It's a daunting vision, but one that is vitally important. This podcast amplifies the voices of those making waves in this space. We hope you enjoy today's episode. The 2023 Water for Food Global Conference dove into many of the issues surrounding the theme of cultivating innovation, solutions for a changing world, including water policy and management, which is a major issue here in the United States. In this third installment of our series from the conference, we hear from a couple of water policy and management experts who are on a panel titled Western Rivers, a Changing Climate and the Role of Irrigated Agriculture. Dick Wolfe is a retired Colorado State engineer who consults on water management issues and serves on a number of boards, including the Colorado Water Trust. And he's also a farmer.
Yes, still currently have farms in the family. We have 3 farms, one in Colorado. We raise corn and alfalfa on it primarily. Last year we had sugar beets for the first time, which was rather interesting. And then a couple of farms in northeast Missouri, which we don't have to irrigate. We let Mother Nature take care of that. And that's corn and soybeans on those 2 farms.
Well, the first question that you dealt with really on the panel that you were on was how agriculture might change the type of crops that we're producing, especially in the West, because of the water challenges. What was your response to that?
For us personally, in our farming operations, this has been over many decades that our farming operations have developed, and so there's we have equipment that we've purchased over time that we use to plant our crops, to farm, and to harvest them, and now we've leased a number of these out. We don't do a lot of that ourselves anymore, but for many years we did. So when you look at the cost of saying, well, maybe I'd like to grow a different crop, but well, then you got to go buy a lot of different equipment to do that. So you've got those factors, and also because of the area we're in, there's a lot of cattle farming or cattle feedlots that are there. I call it cattle farming, but they rely on the local area for hay and corn stuff for their feed things. So we produce a lot of that for local, and so that's just organically has happened over time, and so it's oftentimes hard to look at changing your cropping, even though everybody's looking for trying to maximize their profits. One, you've got to look, well, is there a demand for it? And is it there locally? Is the support there? Like the sugar beet industry used to be very big in northeastern Colorado. That's diminished over time. If you don't have a place to, say, take your sugar beets, well, it may seem cool to raise them, but if you don't have that market there locally to support it, to take it, the cost to, say, transport that to any great distance obviously is going to come into play. So those are the kind of things that drive us, our day-to-day operations, and from year to year. Now, there's things with some of these programs that they've done to try to incentivize some of these farmers to take, say, on a temporary basis, their land out of production, make water available in drought years, say, for cities. And it comes down to some of those that do jump onto those opportunities. If they can make more money that given year by not growing crops because somebody's going to pay them more to not, well, then they can do that. But that's not really an alternative to cropping or doing a different crop. It's just not irrigating at all because somebody else needs the water supply. So that's the only thing that we've seen, any type of change in what you're doing on a year-to-year basis on your farm. I've not seen, particularly in Colorado, that there's been this wholesale change in a particular area like some other areas as mentioned where they've taken out annual crops and put in like permanent almond groves or something like that. That there was obviously some economics and big drivers in that. But like western Colorado, we have the peaches, and the apples orchards have developed over time, and that's a nice niche community that's still stayed very strong there. And so there's that cultural part of it too. People come, grow up, developed around that, and that's just part of that natural economy that's there.
So we really need to work within the system that we have in order to manage water better. But another thing you said that interested me was that water rights are private in Colorado and that they can sell them. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this is the way our system was set up, that in Colorado, like many other western states, water is a public resource. It's owned by the public, and they set up a water rights system there that you just have a right to use it. It's called a usufructuary right. And so, but those water rights are like property rights. You can transfer them away from the property separately, keep the land if you want, or you could sell it with the farm. But that's a unique thing that we have. And so these now, because there's such the scarcity of water resources, it's increased the value on water rights. They've gone way up in value and have continued for a long time, but they're at exceptionally high values now. And so when you see a family like ours, we don't have anybody that wants to take over the farming operation, even though it's nice and we'll say it's cool, and I love the culture of farming and growing up in that. If you don't have a family member that's going to take it over, oftentimes those people say, hey, I'd like to retire when I'm 65 and not when I'm 90 or dropping over sitting on the tractor. So I'm going to sell my water rights because they're very valuable. And maybe they could still do some dryland farming on the property, for example, or maybe they end up developing it into homes. They start growing homes instead of crops. So that's the unique thing, that's people value that private property right more than a lot of things. And even though there's been some discussion, there was at one point about politically trying to pass some legislation to try to influence that, or putting some restrictions on how you could sell that or speculate with it, and it just didn't go anywhere, just because people value that private property right so much that they're willing to fight and protect that as best they can. And
what do you think about the work that the Water for Food Institute does in this particular conference?
Oh, I think it's great. As I indicated earlier, there has to be continued cooperation, collaboration amongst the users and the uses out there. And when we have such a great demand, obviously everybody needs food, everybody needs water to drink. There has to be this coordination, and I think education is key. That in anything we do, whether we're talking about water rights, food, agriculture, people have to have a common understanding, because if we're going to build long-term solutions, everybody's got to work from a common understanding. And so that's critical to have that education, and this organization does that. It brings together those experts from around the world. We can share in the ideas and solutions that have worked elsewhere that we may have not thought of, that, hey, that's a great idea. Let's implement it here. So I think that's good. It's an organization that brings together and can facilitate some of those good, enduring solutions.
Also on the panel with Wolfe was Felicia Marcus, a member of the DWFI Board of Directors. Marcus is a Landreth Visiting Fellow at Stanford University's Water in the West program and currently serves on the Water Policy Group. She talks about some of the perspectives she brought to the discussion.
Well, part of the point was to look at the Colorado River Basin as an example of a broad scale across jurisdictions, a wicked problem, essentially, where we've got a river that 40 million people depend on at the brink of disaster in Deadpool that we've seen coming for 23 years, and we're just now scrambling to try and really deal with what could be a cataclysmic challenge. And hopefully we left people with hope that things might come through, but it's a microcosm of what's happening in river basins all over the world, in some cases unsuccessfully, if you think about the Aral Sea, in other places civilizations that have disappeared. And the real question before us is, how do we come together to deal with the collective challenge that these sorts of things yield, which is a complex challenge involving people, technology, science, law, politics, etc.
Well, you have a lot of that background in California. How has California showing us what to do or what not to do as far as water is?
Well, that's a good question because we are definitely both. I can do a kids don't try this at home list of things like don't imitate our water rights system or system of systems such as it is, and don't mimic our lack of quantification. We're sort of opposite day from Colorado, which has quantified everything down to what runs off urban rooftops. We are in the opposite situation, but we are doing some things well. I think in California over the last decade, you've seen a mobilization and an alignment, at least over two governors, of recognizing that the climate change challenge, for many reasons, but in large part because we're going to lose our snowpack, which is our single largest source of storage being essential to modern California functioning, have agreed and continued a series of actions that are an all of the above approach, not the typical politician saying this one thing or this one project, this grand project that will never happen. For example, trying to get a pipeline from the Great Lakes or tow an iceberg from Alaska, which is easy for a politician to toss off and happens all the time because they'll suggest a thing that won't happen during their term of office. In California, we've been able to keep a consistent all of the above approach, starting with conservation first and foremost and efficiency rules, particularly in the urban sectors, but increasingly in the agricultural sectors, but also integrating conservation, recycling, stormwater capture in the agricultural sector, managed aquifer recharge on speed, land repurposing for agriculture, figuring out how to restore the ecosystem ahead of the endangered species and the crisis. We're not there yet at all, but at least we've got the right language, and we've had millions go into things like floodplain setbacks and upper forest management. So I would say we're in our infancy, but we're in our infancy across the board, which is where the solutions come from, and we're getting better at sharing information with the public more broadly. I think our success in the last drought in achieving 25% urban conservation in a relatively short period of time was due to a combination of, yes, regulation, which gave people the impetus to do it in local water agencies, but also our outreach directly to the public and sharing information with them versus keeping it closely held. And my experience there was that the public was ahead of the politicians, and they understood far more than people gave them credit for if we shared the information. We need to do the same thing about nature-based solutions and the integration of what upper forest watersheds mean to water lower down, what meadow restoration means, what healthy soils and enhanced agricultural practices mean. And I think if we share information more, we'll get more support from the public for frankly, the investments we're going to have to make in recycling, stormwater capture, and the upper watershed management that are going to yield benefits in the decades to come.
Sometimes it seems to be a rural versus urban conflict, for lack of a better word. I'm going to let you rant about urban lawns, and I guess it becomes a prioritization as far as water is concerned, and how important is a green lawn?
Yeah, lawns are interesting because they are huge water users, and people don't necessarily realize they turn sprinklers on. They don't realize. I think increasingly as we have more smart meters going in the urban arena, a lot of agencies are investing in it. Individuals are investing in them. They can see how much of their water goes outside, and once they see that, it becomes very obvious that they never really loved the lawn anyway, but you see the magnitude of how much water they're spending on it, in addition to all the time spent mowing it, bagging it. It used to be sending it to a landfill, which is the last place it should go because you want landfills to stay dry. I mean, let me count the ways in which lawns make no sense from an urban management, but there are times when it's nice to have one in the backyard where you can play ball with a kid and they can fall down. That's a functional lawn, but it just doesn't have to be bright green. And so much of that water use is not for keeping the lawn alive. It's for making it a particular shade of green, which if you think about modern life is not as essential as the food you eat that you got from a farmer. I mean, I like to say during our drought that somebody in urban LA has more in common with a farmer growing their food in the Central Valley than they do with the jerk down the block who's like overwatering their lawn so much it's running into the street. Oh, and by the way, by doing that, also carrying all of the oil, dog droppings, and urban pesticides down the street and ultimately into the bay or the harbor. So there's just so many ways in which that's just wrong. And places like Nevada have gotten it past legislation, so Las Vegas has banned non-functional turf. We have an executive order in California that bans it for ornamental landscapes on commercial properties. And I think the lawn is just the easiest thing to lose, but you don't want people just to put gravel down. So it takes a lot of money, but Metropolitan Water District put out $400 million alone in our last drought. And every time they put out another tranche of it, it got snapped up within weeks because people knew it, but they need a little help to be able to translate it into a pleasing native plant landscape. On top of that, what Metropolitan and others are doing in this drought when they're doing the transition, many communities, is they're doing it if people also transition to rain gardens where it's shaped in some way so that it captures stormwater that comes off the roof of their homes, et cetera, and sinks it into the ground. So there's a multiple benefit transition that will yield beautiful landscapes that are lower maintenance and less water using. And now we have to train people or teach people how they need to plant more trees and take care of a tree and water them differently with drip and deep drip rather than the superficial sprinkler water they've been using, which allow the roots to stay shallow, and therefore when the winds come, the trees can topple. So it means you have to invest in communication with the public.
You're very proud of of being on the board here at Water for Food. Why is it so important to you? Why do you think the work that Water for Food does is so important?
Well, it's water for food, which is important in and of itself. But I think DWFI is unique in that it's water for food, but it's also water, food, and natural resources. All three, in an attempt to again get to this more holistic sense of all of the things communities need to have a healthy, thriving community and economy. And so that's what drew me here. I think it's what drew them to me in some ways, which is it takes a more integrated rather than a narrow focus, which makes it a more interesting and complex institution. The other thing that I think is unique about DWFI is while it has a specialty in the High Plains states, and that's perfectly appropriate. I mean, there's no aquifer more charismatic than the Ogallala, I have to say. It's also, and also with Nebraska being, sort of the ground zero for pivot irrigation and western expansion and all of that, it also has the international factor, pulling it together because water, people, food is a universal, and yet most organizations, I don't say they over-specialize because specializing is important, but DWI ends up having sort of a real-world connection to smallholding farmers, to environmentalists, to people in Africa, to people in Asia, to people all over the world that I think has real human resonance. And so for me, it's kind of, it grabs my head and my heart kind of a place.
Hope you enjoyed this third and final episode from the 2023 Water for Food Global Conference. To catch the previous two or any of the previous 26 episodes of the Water for Food podcast, you can find us on your favorite podcasting platform or at waterforfood.nebraska.edu to view show notes or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.